Yeah, guys, I hope you guys are having an amazing Sunday. So I'm back. Basically, today we'll be discussing about amazing tool and amazing software that I worked earlier upon also, but thought to like share a little bit of basics around it today. So that is Elasticsearch. If you guys have never heard of, that is okay. We will be starting with the basics and we'll be comparing with the other tools that you guys might have heard of. Okay, so what is Elasticsearch? Elasticsearch is one of the options to store the NoSQL data. Like we have MongoDB, we have NoSQL. So yeah, we have options around it, but Elasticsearch is one of the best competitors around that. So why it is so good? It has certain features which makes it like top priority. So it is better scalable, it is better managed, it is having replicas and all of those features which makes it amazing. So this is a website of Elastic. So if you can see there, must be used by the amazing companies, the big companies, they use this. And what is the amazing thing about Elastic also, it gives you with the combination of Kibana, it gives you an amazing UI to tackle the data. You can do almost everything from the UI part. You can see these all UI can be built using Kibana only. So it has a proper security mechanism, search and everything. There is one more option that I want to discuss with you guys. Is basically if you don't want to install Elastic and Kibana on your local machine and keep it on maintenance and keeping everything under your check, it is there is also one more option, Elastic Cloud. It is just a on button click setup. So you just need to sign in and all will be done for your side. So that is about it. These are the two things we will be talking about today, Elasticsearch and Kibana. Okay, so what are these? Basically, Elasticsearch I have already told. It is a kind of NoSQL database which stores the documents in the form of JSON. So that is the database part. What is Kibana? Kibana is a basically a UI, user interface, which gives you the power to interact with the Elasticsearch. Because so if you want to interact with MySQL, you can interact with terminal, or you can interact with something. So that is quite cumbersome for a normal person. So Kibana and these things gives you an UI, so that you can interact with the database by on click. That was the introduction of Elasticsearch and Kibana. So we'll be diving in directly into this. So first thing I want to introduce is about documents. I told you one thing, that all the data has been stored in Elasticsearch. It is stored in form of no JSON object. So you know about the JSON object, right? Basically these have keys and values. So that is what a JSON object is. So if you want to store a data of a person, suppose name, country, age and whatever, it will be stored in the form of JSON. So here is your data in underscore source key. So there are also other keys available here. We'll be not discussing it right now because that will complicate the things. These are just metadata for Elasticsearch. We will be not using it for our purposes. We'll be using these data under underscore source. So what is document is? Basically it is the most minute unit of the Elasticsearch in which the data have been stored. So that is what the document is. Going forward, we have two things to understand. One is nodes and cluster. So for that I'll just use this image. What is a node? Node is basically a collection of documents, or we can say basically endpoint. How many nodes can a Elasticsearch can have? It can have infinite, or there's a first question, we can have any number of nodes. Basically nodes partitions the responsibilities and when the load comes to Elasticsearch. And basically question is, what can I have multiple nodes on a single machine, or do I need to have a separate machine for each node? So technically ideally it should be each node should have a separate machine, but you, for the development purposes and for your like playing around, you can easily use a single machine or virtual machine to install and as many node as you want. So that is what the node is. Second part comes is cluster. So what is cluster? Cluster is basically a collection of your nodes. So it is like that way. So it can have any infinite number of nodes. Okay, so that is what I'm saying. Each node will be belonging to a cluster, though no node can be flying around independently. So when I initiate a node, when I initiate a first node, you must be thinking where is our cluster. So that Elasticsearch automatically handles it, will create a new cluster and align that first node to that cluster. So that is the part is what why we use clusters, basically to partition the responsibilities. Suppose we want one cluster to handle the e-commerce search engine and another cluster to handle the logs or any other things on any other data you want to store. So basically these are two separate data. If you want that kind of logical partitioning in this data, you can use the clusters. So basically you can have multiple nodes, as I told you. So now you can have primary shard and a secondary shard for the scenario, right? So what replica is, basically if you want to store the data and keep a duplicate of it in case some failure happens or your server goes down or something happens. So we want the data to be reliable. If the server fails, it should not be the case that our whole data goes and we need to reseed it again or something. So we will be using replicas for that perspective. And how to store this replica? One thing I want you to notice is primary shard A, its replicas are stored in another node. Why? Because suppose if this node fail and if we store these replica also in this, we'll be using the main data and its replicas also. So that is how the data is stored crosswise. So if this node A failed, we have its replica in node B, and if node B fails, we have its replica in node A. So there will be always having the duplicate data that we can restore as per our preference. So that is the basics of Elasticsearch that I want to go through today. So that is the first part of this video, and for the second part we'll be installing the Elasticsearch on macOS.